welcome to the podcast, guys.
Hello.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Good to
Yeah,
be
thank you
here.
for having us.
I'd like to say that this is the largest group that we have had yet on a podcast, so it should be interesting to kind of see how this turns out with everybody wanting to chime in. So we'll go ahead and we'll get started. I have had an opportunity to be exposed a little bit to this project through Eric Grill. He's kind of explained a little bit of what's going on with your guys' capstone project. So I'm really excited to get into the weeds with you guys as far as like, what are you guys doing and how did you guys even come about to this? So why don't we just start off with just a quick introduction of who you are and your major, and we'll kind of go from there.
Sounds good. I can go first. My name's Hudson Pavia. I'm a senior here at Lehigh studying computer science and business. As far as the project goes, I was working with Joss pretty heavily on the back end, doing some of the smart contract development. And then I also did a lot of the smart contract testing.
Fantastic.
Hey everyone, I'm Josh Duff. I'm also a senior at Lehigh University, computer science business major. And yeah, I worked with Hudson on back end stuff, so smart contract development, hard hat environment, and also building up our graph.
I'll go next. My name's Kenneth Cho. I'm a senior studying computer science and business at Lehigh. And I worked with Justin a lot on the front end integration of the back end smart contract, being able to call all the contract functions on the front end, and also creating a customer facing application that kind of shows what all of our efforts led to.
And I'm Justin. I guess I'll save the best for last. No. I work, like Kenny said, I worked pretty heavily on the front end. I was mainly the visual aspect of it, while Kenny was more of connecting it to the back end. But yeah.
It's like the kicker on the football team, the UI UX guy. That's what I like to say. And
Always
Professor Hank.
right?
Yes, I'm Hank Korth. I'm a professor in the Computer Science and Engineering Department here at Lehigh, and I did not write a single line of code for this, much to my regret. I would have loved to have, but I'm spending my time organizing a number of blockchain activities here in Lehigh. We're one of the relatively few schools having a substantial number of blockchain courses, substantial research activity, and a variety of outreach. We have research in accelerating zero-knowledge proofs. I won't go into that here. Benchmarking blockchains, and work on various ecosystems in terms of both business and consensus algorithms for central bank digital currencies. And we have this capstone project. We have a couple of others with other partners. So lots of exciting stuff going on here, and it's really great to be with you today.
Awesome. Well, thanks, gentlemen. It's definitely a pleasure to have you guys all here, and I'm really interested to get into this. So why don't we just kind of get started with how did you guys get started into coding for the blockchain?
I'll go first. So I came into Lehigh as a CS major, always know I wanted to do that. But getting into blockchain and crypto specifically happened during my freshman year over COVID. I was home by myself. One of my friends got a record player for some reason, and I had a box of old records in my basement. So I told him, hey, you can have these old records if you want. And he was like, sweet, yeah, I'll give you a Ethereum for the records. I didn't really know what Ethereum was at the time. I was going to give him the records for free anyway. So I was like, sure, whatever. And this was right before the start of the 2020 bull run. So I watched my Ethereum go from like $150 to like $2,000. And at that point I was kind of hooked. And then course registration was coming up, had an extra slot, just like by pure chance, was browsing the course catalog and saw a class with blockchain in the keyword. And I was like, sure, I'll take that. Why not? Took that. And then ever since that class, I've just been totally hooked. I've taken all the other blockchain classes at Lehigh, trying to do some research, really want to get involved with this capstone project. But yeah, that's how I got into it.
That's awesome. That's actually probably one of the most interesting ways to get pulled in and involved in crypto that I've heard yet.
Yeah. Just ended up being pretty lucky.
Unrelated to crypto, what record was this?
Oh
It's worth
God, I don't
it's
even
worth
know.
some
It
money.
was no, it was a whole like milk carton of my parents' old records. So some old stuff.
You
So
don't even know what it was.
No, yeah, before my time.
well, at least you have what, like $1,500-$1,600 now for that milk crate of records.
Yeah.
If he held it.
Yeah, no, it turned into a pretty good investment. Still holding.
Okay. Anybody else want to share their involvement of how they got into crypto?
I could speak to my story. It's kind of the opposite of Joss's story. It was during COVID as well, where he had a nice positive experience, nice profit on his first entry into crypto. I had the opposite. I was more of a I would say I was more gambling in the crypto space. I had some free time during COVID, during quarantine. I was like, this seems cool. I'll throw some money at a couple different projects, and I'd say 80% of them didn't go the way I was hoping. But I was really interested in the space after kind of not past speculation. I was reading up on things, and my dad actually was like, well, this could be a really big thing in the technology space. I think it's worth, if your school offers some courses, you should explore this. And I like to listen to my old man as much as possible. So I was like, all right, I saw that Lehigh was offering some courses, and I actually took Professor Korth here. I took my first course with him last spring, and I was completely hooked, like Joss. And I just started, really putting a lot of effort into that course, trying to self-educate as much as possible. And when I saw ChainBytes was sponsoring a project for the capstone uh, course here at Lehigh, that was my number one choice. I wanted to hop right aboard.
Awesome.
Yeah, I could also speak to this topic. So I'll say that I had a more similar of an experience with Hudson than I did with Joss. I also did a little bit of gambling here and there with with coins, and it turned out all right. But right now it's a little, don't want to talk about that. But um, beyond just like the investment portion of it, I was interested in the idea behind all this. Like, why does it have value? Like, what's the point of it? And as I started to gain more interest in it and looking and really reading more articles about it, learning more about it, I really wanted to explore more and try coding in the environment. So I decided to take on this blockchain project where I learned, I'd say like 80% of the knowledge of what goes on behind the scenes. And yeah, that really developed my interest for everything.
Awesome. Yeah. I think there's one part of crypto to interact with it, but there's a whole nother part of crypto when you are actually creating something or you're birthing something of your own. And I think that's probably what motivates all of you guys and makes you all unique or also similar to each other.
There's also multiple epiphanies that you have. Like when you first start using it, it's cool. I can send money, and then you realize, wait, there's more going on behind this thing. There's an immutable ledger, especially as a developer, and then you start going down that, and you're like, wow, this.
Yeah.
So, anyway, Justin, how about you? What got you started?
Funny enough, I don't actually own any crypto. Yeah. I'm
Got to change that.
Buy some right now.
What got you?
I guess I gotta
interested?
buy
You don't have
some,
to
but
own it. You just
yeah, I'm more interested in blockchain as a technology more than cryptocurrency. I think a decentralized ledger like a blockchain can have a lot of great uses in the future. And when we were selecting this project, I saw that, or when we were selecting projects for Capstone, I saw that this this project involved blockchain, which it's emerging technology, and was interested in technology. It was like actually doing something, because some of these projects, no, I'm kidding, but yeah,
No, it's true.
this project is doing
I mean,
something.
that's the industry in general.
Yeah.
Mhm.
This project was doing something really cool, and it just spoke to me. So I put it down there, I want to do it, and was selected for it. So yeah.
So I'm sure there were a lot of different capstone projects that you guys could have selected from. But what made you guys decide on this specific project?
I was really into it because the idea of like blockchain for social good type of angle, like Justin said, there's so many projects in this space. The space is exploding so fast that there's a ton of stuff coming into it. Also, like a lot of kind of scam projects, like I'm sure FTX. We can talk about that later. But just like blockchain as a whole doesn't really have like a very good social image, but it can be used for so many like great social applications that benefit like everybody around the world, that I just thought it'd be really nice to support and be part of like a project that tackles it from like a social good aspect and puts some like good blockchain news in the headlines rather than all like the doom and gloom that you see that like scares people like my parents away from like blockchain and crypto just as a word.
So you're saying you're not doing anything in the dark market?
No, no, no. Of course not. Of course not.
Unless it's a dark roast from El Salvador. So
Exactly. We love those.
awesome. Anybody else? Anybody else have any other reasons for selecting this as their capstone project?
I really like the idea of, well, making that social good impact, but also immersing myself in something that I rarely ever have touched before, and which is like an emerging technology. And it sounded so exciting to get my hands onto it, that and develop something cool.
Yeah, awesome.
I'm interested, Professor Korth, what got you into blockchain, and
I guess we never
importantly, how
actually
did you
had
get
that
that?
conversation. I mean, how?
No, and how did you get it into Lehigh? That's really what I
Yeah,
because
I
you
mean,
did this a long time ago.
getting
and
this
is
project in goes back to a couple of students who graduated in 2018 and founded the Dolomite Exchange, and we advised them, and that was our connection there, and that wasn't far off from when this all started. So, really started. A couple of students came in and said, we should have a blockchain course at Lehigh. Do you know of anybody who might do it? No, I don't. I'll ask around. I mean, some of I'm had enough other things on my plate besides running the computer science and business program that many of you are in, which is a Lehigh unique 4-year dually accredited CS and business, so nothing watered down. All that stuff kept me busy. Anyway, so like, no, I don't have time to do this, but I'll ask around. Well, I came up empty. Said, what the heck? I'll do it. So, I mean, obviously, I had read about the technology, but hadn't really gotten into anything. So, as a first course, I put together the more business-oriented course that some of you have taken, where sort of enough tech to be honest, a focus on policy applications and things like that, and of course, being a newbie to teaching this, I looked to bring in some people to give talks. So we had a guy in Allentown who had the first subway to accept Bitcoin. Phenomenal story. He was on CNBC, total blast. I mean, not a lot of tech there, but it was fun. So he was in for a class. I had another alumnus, Kevin Worth, who is CEO of CoinDesk. So that was remarkable celebrity action for a new course. And so I mean, the students knew that we were all learning together. We had a great time. So then, okay, got the fall coming up. How about I give an unapologetically computer science course? No applications, no policy, just crypto math, consensus algorithms, smart contract coding, and that's the focus. And so I put that one together. Now, and the enrollments kept booming. I thought they were kind of tracking the price of crypto, but if I look at my enrollments for the spring, maybe a slight downturn, but almost a blessing because they're getting so big. I mean, we have like 120, 130 students who are touched by blockchain now per year at Lehigh, which for our size is just it's stunning. And so that's how it got started. And then, from a research point of view, I'm a database researcher. I've done that, since the Jurassic period. And there I could look at blockchain as a kind of database. whole bunch of synergies there. I mean, you read Vitalik talking about sharding. Well, we worked on that in a database context back in the 80s. And I can kind of laugh at some of the things that they're worrying about now. Yeah, I know that stuff. So that's how we got some of the research projects going that I mentioned in the beginning. And so we've had students come through undergrad, stay for masters, go on to interesting places. We have a student in a digital currency startup, a student at Aztec, which is a very important but small company in the zero knowledge business, and other graduates, Coinbase, Fireblocks. I think I've hit the main ones more core in the space, and then others who've got on into various random companies, but are representing crypto there, like in the big four accounting firms and other Google, etc. So it just kind of built up. And now we have a vast number of friends, relationships, funding sources, and just a major big thing going here. And lots of faculty, both in computer science and in business, interested in all of this.
It's really awesome. And you guys hit it in a great timing in 2018 in order to do that and have that growth. It's really awesome.
And, great supporters. I mean, my primary appointment is in our engineering college. The business dean is a big fan of this. We even have one of our courses now in the Masters in Financial Engineering at her insistence. So I'm teaching that too. And you want to keep it light.
You're spreading throughout the university now.
I never took a finance course in my life. I'm a CS guy. I was an undergrad math major. I never took an engineering course. So I'm teaching a graduate course in financial engineering. Go figure.
Wow.
I guess you just have to know a little bit more than they do, right?
So how did the problem in El Salvador with the coffee supply chain initially get proposed to you, Hank?
That was all Eric. So I had a chat with Eric about the idea that we could do some capstone projects in the generally in the crypto space, probably the Bitcoin space, given the business. And I think it was the first thing you proposed, Eric, was this, if I'm not mistaken. And this just
I think so. I think I just came back from El Salvador, and when I was in El Salvador and they proposed, I was like, oh, I know the perfect people that are gonna because we had talked before I went there. So when I came back, I was like, yeah, I think this is the one, and yeah, that was the first one I told you about, and yeah, it seemed like a perfect fit.
Yeah, now as I'm remembering, we kind of chatted about it. I'm going to go there and we'll check it out and I'll let you know. And was kind of hoping.
Okay, could have been, yeah.
And then I look at what you guys have done. And I mean, we may say more about that going on in this, but, really proud of what you've all accomplished.
Absolutely, yeah. And I'm looking forward to actually rolling it out and seeing people using it and getting feedback from it as well. It's exciting.
So what about the specific problem in El Salvador with the coffee supply chain inspired you guys most in order to get started on the project?
I feel like that is just like it felt like a natural blockchain application. In supply chain, we just needed some things to be more transparent and not necessarily provable, but on the blockchain, things are immutable. So if these workers are checking in and it gets put on the blockchain, it's indisputable that they checked in. If they get paid, it's put on the blockchain. If they're paid through the blockchain, then it's also indisputable that they got paid. It just seemed like a nice combination or a nice use of blockchain.
Did it come naturally to everybody in this group as far as what you guys wanted to do, as far as resolving the problem, or were there any conflicts or different ideas about how to solve this?
I think one of our first big discussions was kind of separation of powers of how much data did we need to put on chain versus how much data we want to put on chain versus at what point does it get too expensive and too much data to put on chain? At what point does this smart contract become too risky? What data do we not have to have be immutable? And what can we like rely on using like a secondary storage for? So like our first implementation of our smart contract that we were working on was this kind of like monolithic smart contract that dealt with like these large like data objects for each like type of person that would be touching a coffee farm. A lot of inheritance. If you know smart contracts, you know inheritance is a great point for vulnerabilities and just lots of contracts itself. And we worked on that for a little bit, but then kind of had to take a step back and say, all right, this is getting really big. It's going to be expensive to run this. It's going to be expensive to test this. Like, do we actually need all of this stuff on chain? And then we kind of worked on a V2 smart contract where we just treat the individuals who are interacting with these farms just purely as addresses, and we're just leveraging the immutability of blockchain by emitting events onto the chain. So there's like a log history of workers checking in and getting paid. And just we went with like as simple as possible for a smart contract. But I'd say that was our biggest, I guess, not necessarily pivot. We've had other big pivots that we can speak to later.
But it was
yeah, I
some.
mean, you could talk about the first pivot. First
Yeah,
we started
yeah.
in Bitcoin and trying to do this on Bitcoin.
Oh,
So
that was a
that's
nightmare.
sort of an interesting.
Yeah. Just to backtrack.
You want to talk about that?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Sure.
Or I was going to backtrack just a little
Talk
bit
about some of the challenges.
Yeah, the challenges. Aside from just the technical aspects of it, as Joss was talking about, I think going into this project, we had some assumptions that were just not true. You know, we all live in America. There's a certain standard of living, of work that we're used to, that we didn't maybe realize was not the case in El Salvador. So, for example, we we were assuming that we could trust someone to keep track of all the workers that are there that day. You work a job here. There's a manager that is keeping track of all the employees. But in this scenario, perhaps that's a third party that can't be trusted. That maybe they're a lead contributor to the whole issue that we're trying to solve. So there's just like little things like that that we aren't used to thinking about, that when we first started kind of designing the solution for this project, those were the things that we kind of had to adjust our minds to and look at things through different perspectives. I think it's kind of it was an interesting, I don't know, error of the project that we don't really think
true.
about that much
When
anymore.
We were identifying those trusted parties that we wanted to remove from the process, that were really the problem in the process. And so it's interesting. I mean, that's really what blockchain does well, is removes trusted third parties. And so it's a new way of thinking.
Exactly. Something I wasn't.
How did you come to that conclusion as far as knowing this? I mean, I'm assuming nobody physically went there, observed any of the operations. So you guys were having to make some very broad assumptions as you guys went through and decided how you're going to develop the technology in order to do this.
We have a partner there in El Salvador that runs a lot of the farms there. So he was a big help in explaining the processes and how it works and how it should work, how it's actually working, where the pain points are along the way, what we can have a big impact on. So, we've relied on them a lot.
Okay. So, gentlemen, do you guys want to talk to me a little bit about what specific issues were you guys targeting to actually resolve?
Sure, I can start with this. So I think the main issue, the bottom line, is that we want to make sure that the workers are getting paid. I think that was kind of the main big picture problem that we're solving. That for various reasons, corruption, bribery, whatever it may be, there are workers in El Salvador who are working hard on these coffee farms and not getting paid. And so the biggest thing that we set out to prove is, if there's a worker here, we want it to be completely undeniable that they were paid for their work. If anyone wants to expand off that, I mean, that was just, I think, the main
I guess we should talk about why that's important. So fair trade means that the workers are getting paid properly all the way through the chain, and you're not paying for slave labor. And when you have people cheat in the process, the entire country gets blamed for that. And so the coffee industry in El Salvador is practically dead. I saw the coffee trees are rotting. The fruits on the ground, it's rotting. I'm like, what's going on? The fields are empty. Why? Because they can't sell their coffee. So I thought, well, this is great. The president of the country adopted Bitcoin, gave us an opportunity to make changes in its country. It doesn't necessarily have to be, Bitcoin related. It can be something just solving a problem in the country using blockchain. And I thought, well, this is perfect. We have a university in Pennsylvania that can participate and help a country solve one of its industry problems. This is gold. I mean, it seemed like such an obvious fit, and certainly in hindsight it does. But at the time, it was good for everyone. I mean, except maybe the trusted third parties that are going to be out of work. But, yeah.
Or the money that they were getting and not paying to others.
Well, we're not getting it anymore anyway, because that's over, right? They milked it as long as they could, and now the industry is dead, and so there's really a smaller industry that's,
So it sounds like the big impact socially for this is that one, you guys are restoring work, to locals of El Salvador. You're ensuring that they're getting paid, and that you're also ensuring that consumers can be confident of the fair trade.
There's actually another angle in between, which is the fact that, as Eric alluded to, that the plantations were going to rot. And so it's not only that the workers are getting paid, but all the legitimate workers in the supply chain now have a business that they didn't have before. So there's a broader national good here as well.
Absolutely.
Right. Whole Foods and Amazon can buy coffee from them and know, hey, this is provable, that this is fair. And I guess big picture is showing a success in El Salvador, the first country to adopt Bitcoin and crypto, to make them successful, to take an industry that nobody would have even paid attention to it. Nobody would have cared to not only pay attention to it, but to produce a product that solves their problem on blockchain. And it's undeniable, right? Forget about the GDP and all these other things that they're looking at as cryptocurrency, but we actually solved a real world problem on the ground. So that's exciting. And certainly we'll let the president hold it up as a success story when he's able to use this new technology that he's been touting. And so that's exciting.
So what do you guys think is going to be the biggest impact of this project long term for the coffee trade?
Well, the students are thinking. It's obviously in itself just a wonderful project. We talk about all the good here, but it's an example of what can be done. And if you look, globally, but at least, look in Central America, South America, others can see a nation like ours was able to do this. And, so the good can spread.
Absolutely. I agree. Especially to demonstrate that young minds, entry level into blockchain technologies have the ability to solve real world problems that have great social impact, and that it was so easy that it was able to be done from Pennsylvania of all places to impact somewhere very far away, very abroad. So I would agree with you.
But the environment is there. That's the thing. There aren't other countries in the world we could do this, right? I've been to other places and tried to do things. They're not a welcoming environment. Here's somebody saying, please come to my country and help us. And so I felt like we had a responsibility to go there and figure out ways to help them. And so there's other problems that we can solve with this. And it's not just coffee. And there's other things. And it opens people's eyes up to this is more than just money. And especially in El Salvador, it goes back and forth, and especially with the price going down. I haven't been there in a bit, but I imagine nobody's happy about that. So this gives another side to the story.
Okay. So
and maybe that's the long-term effect. You answer both questions.
I think you just did. That is both. So you guys mentioned that you guys started initially looking at doing this with the Bitcoin blockchain. What kind of issues did you guys run into with the project, and what did you guys ultimately end up doing in order to solve those?
Um, I'll start, and then you guys can jump in. So the idea was to use the Bitcoin blockchain, and then we were going to spin up a side chain off of Bitcoin that did all the calculations and had all the logics, and then occasionally syncs back to Bitcoin. And then we also would have we'd use the Lightning Network for payments. So the first step for that was just basically spinning up a side chain, just like very, very basic, very first step was just get this like bare bones thing to work. And we could barely get that to happen.
Liquid. That
Yeah,
they were spinning up Liquid
we're using Elements spin of
in
liquid
Docker,
sidechain
as I
in
remember.
Docker. We couldn't get like the two Docker containers to even communicate between each other, like on our local computers. And it was like halfway through the first semester of this project, and we just kind of said like, screw it, moving to Ethereum. And then like in that second half of the semester, we did like 10 times as much work.
Everything.
Yeah, like we did like basically everything in that second half of the semester. So in like the same time it took us to like mess around with Docker for a little bit, just because Ethereum has like the whole development environment surrounding Solidity already. And in Bitcoin, like we would also
Be
run
prepared
into
to get
issues.
blasted by the maxis.
Oh yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. yeah. They know my name too. No, but then even if we got the like containers working, then we would have had to dive into like
It
the
would have been the
Bitcoin
next problem. The
scripting
next problem.
language, and then like getting that, logging that on the chain, and figuring something to like crawl the chain for the data on the Bitcoin blockchain. It would have been like problem after problem after problem. So I think like if somebody listening to this wants to move it to Bitcoin, like go for it. Like we have the proof of concept.
Well, the RSK guy. So when I was in was it Guadalajara speaking, the RSK guys were speaking before me, and of course they heard what I said. I'm like, you could do it on Bitcoin. We have RSK. I'm like, oh yeah. Well,
Like yeah,
maybe.
Sure, maybe eventually.
Oh, I don't know if you guys know what
theoretically
RSK is. Yeah,
could move it
but
to Bitcoin.
in theory we could have. And anyway,
There's also like for what we were trying to do, there's a severe lack of documentation, and just our inexperience combined with that lack of documentation just made us pull our hairs out trying to figure this out. And yeah, and not to mention, like even if we did get it spun up, we would have to figure out a way to translate it onto a front end that would be would have to be usable by these workers, by these farms, by these foremen. And yeah, that would be a whole nother problem in itself. So yeah.
So let me ask you guys, what tool do you think that somebody developed on Bitcoin would have helped us? Like what could be out there? Like Rootstock is maybe a solution, but what else? Like what other tool were we really lacking there?
I mean, we didn't
I
even
guess
we barely got to like the development stage with Bitcoin. Like the issue itself, our issue was just like our issue was literally just spinning up a side chain, and there's elements for that, but it wasn't super thoroughly documented, like Justin said. So maybe just that, maybe just making it having an easier solution just to spin up a sidechain in the first place and mess around with it. But
Yeah, I would agree with Josh. I think not even necessarily a specific tool, but at least from a complete beginner's perspective, approaching developing on Bitcoin was just so much scarier than it is with Ethereum. So I think maybe a bigger focus on beginners onboarding new people into Bitcoin development. I feel like it's a space right now that's made for people that already know what they're doing. Whereas Ethereum kind of, they can hold your hand a little bit until you get your feet under you, a little more confident.
I think it's also interesting to think about who the they is when you talk about these things. And Ethereum and the ETH Foundation and others spawn a huge ecosystem. Algorand has that, Stellar has it, Polkadot has it, et cetera, et cetera. But we don't have a Satoshi Nakamoto Foundation. And so the infrastructure itself is more decentralized, which in some ways is really, really good. But for something like this, where you're trying to build something not only with students learning things, but also something that itself will be sustainable. These students will graduate, I hope, and then others will need to pick it up. And so it needs to be something that is easily transitionable. So there's a sort of high-level software engineering issue here. And I think the Bitcoin ecosystem is really not in the same competitive space there as the ones orchestrated by some of the big blockchain foundations.
Yeah, I think that's true. We've discussed this with other people on here. Why is that the case? And my argument is the money. There was money in creating ICOs and tokens and things. You could build whatever you wanted on Ethereum. If you wanted to build something, you could raise money for it and do it on there. Whereas Bitcoin, you weren't tied to the success of the coin. It was disconnected. So you actually had to build a product that was successful to make money. And most people just wanted to take the easy way. Oh, let's get millions up front. We'll build something cool. And I think that had a lot to do with why Bitcoin is where it is today. And then, yeah, we don't have a foundation. We don't have the same kind of investment. I think now with the excitement of Lightning, we see a lot more of these types of tools being built, but it's playing catch up. And Bitcoin was here first. Why are we playing catch up, right? That was supposed to be the smart contract and colored coins. There were all these things, these proposals along the way, and it just doesn't.
Yeah, you mentioned like how like easy it. I think a big point in a big advantage in this industry, it bites us in the butt sometimes, is just being able to move fast and iterate over things. Like you're talking about how on Ethereum how easy it is to start something up, release a coin, and then make millions of dollars off that coin. That whole ICO craze really did bite a lot of people in the butt, and people are more wary about just random tokens popping up nowadays. But Ethereum went through that and was stronger for it because they could just move faster through it.
Well, at least you guys didn't do a whole bunch of work only to come to this conclusion a lot further down the road, and you guys were able to make your pivot and make a decision and start really getting some work done.
Yeah, you guys must have been freaked out when you were started using Bitcoin. Well, I know you guys were when you were started using Bitcoin. Like, oh my God, how are we going to do this? What is he crazy? Like, this is crazy.
The amount
How are
of
we going to do this?
terms that we had to look up and just define in a document because we were all figuring out everything, and everything was new. But except like when we're developing on Ethereum, there's a lot of things that look familiar, and there's even JavaScript a little bit in there, and so everything looks a little bit more familiar, at least with Ethereum compared to Bitcoin.
No, it's true.
Friendly faces.
But hey, at least you can say when people, when they come up to you, hey, we did try to do it in Bitcoin. It just wasn't a viable option for us. Really? Yeah. Tell me why. Well, we can tell you why. Like this is we went through the process. We walked through it, and hopefully in a couple of years that changes and we can build on Bitcoin. But maybe not. Maybe it'll never be that. Maybe it'll never be that.
I think we should make sure to put a little asterisk next to we couldn't as undergraduates and our first time developing.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Using, you know what I mean? Like it's definitely like possible before anybody like sharpens any spears or anything like that.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah, because those guys are. You could have used this. I was like,
yeah, I'm sure there's somebody going to be listening to this, being like, "These guys are idiots. I could do this in my sleep." But like as a first introduction for us,
nothing that good.
Yeah.
You guys are learning. You have a limited amount of time in order to complete a project that solves a real world problem, and then something that you guys are able to go and tout. Spinning your wheels in a planning stage is going to be just as unproductive as just sitting there trying to develop on it.
Yeah, you got to, when you're prototyping, you got to build it quick and fail fast and make and prove these things out. And you don't want to spend all your time figuring out how to get a Docker container to communicate with the other one, and just all these infrastructure issues. Like, oh, there should be an environment, there should be a stack that we can develop on, and it's consistent and it's documented, and we don't have it that I know of.
Well, I know we say this a lot, but we need more developer tools specific to Bitcoin, and that kind of stuff will obviously help in the future technology development in order to use those things. So as that gets more prolific, I think we'll see a little bit more, and it might be you guys. This may be inspiring you guys in order to to be those people who do that. So I'm kind of curious because I don't want to feel like we're completely bashing Bitcoin, which we're not. But
No.
how has this project and the experience impacted you and specifically like just Bitcoin, your journey with Bitcoin?
I can go first. I don't want to bash it, and I was a rookie coming into this, so I might not have like enough background to really speak to this intelligently. But
It's
I feel like
perspective.
I feel like
Actually, yeah, it's better your perspective.
Mhm.
Frankly, go ahead.
I feel like I kind of lost respect for Bitcoin in a way, whereas I felt like Bitcoin's obviously the biggest cryptocurrency in the world. That's what grabs all the headlines. But to me, especially after we swapped to Ethereum and our productivity just went like 1,000-fold, I was like, Ethereum accomplishes everything Bitcoin accomplishes and so much more. I just feel like Ethereum is so much more empowering, and yeah, I know it sounds kind of bad, but like I became a big
You got to take
Ethereum
that sound clip
fanboy.
and put that up on Twitter. We're gonna get killed.
My first
Just take that
comment
clip,
is going
put
to
a meme
ask you
on
what
there.
your gas fees are.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure.
Fair.
And if you still feel if it's the same.
I'll take all the heat, but yeah, no, I mean, I don't know. I think Bitcoin
No,
be that could be as great as all the maxis want it to be. I just don't think it's there right now.
And I think one of the large points of why it's not there right now is like what you were saying earlier, Jeremy, about the developer tools. Like as soon as this kind of box of like Web3 opened up, people were like, "Oh my God! Like everything in Web2 can be replaced with Web3. Let's go rebuild everything in Web2 as Web3." And kind of that was like the main focus, whereas the focus should have been on the developer tools. Like it's kind of like that's like it's like a gold rush right now to rebuild everything in Web3. But like, who are the people who profited off the gold rush? The people who are selling the tools.
That's right. Yeah, I would tend to agree with that. It's one of those shiny object moments, and everybody started to chase after it and really lost focus on on some of the basics inside Bitcoin development
I
for
think
those
the whole
tools.
but also
experience says something about how governance works in this space. And we've seen the controversies over Ethereum, the merge, and Ethereum is decentralized, except there's Vitalik Buterin and et al., and so at least a bully pulpit, to say it nicely. Um, and this plays into the whole tool thing. Tools don't give you immediate rewards. You make money, but later on, and there's these immediate opportunities. And so it takes some organization or a group with a long-term view, willing to sacrifice now for more reward in the future. And a purely decentralized ecosystem is perhaps not as good at that kind of thing. While the non-Bitcoin blockchains that have, a kind of, I better not say centralization or I'll get beaten up, but have some degree of a point of focus for leadership. Is that a good euphemism for centralization? And they have been able to construct a developer ecosystem, tools, documentation, ways of getting help with things that makes everything that much more attractive. Now, it could happen for Bitcoin. Somebody with enough resources has to make the long-term investment, and I'm not sure where that's going to come from, but you all may have some insight there.
It's the community. So, and that's one thing
well,
that I've.
there are some companies and funds that are sponsoring this now, many years
Oh
later.
yeah,
Like it's such a yeah, and so yeah, they may play catch up, but I think developers are creatures of habit as well, and so they've been developing in Solidity. It's easy, and so whatever they're going to build is going to have to be at least as easy as that, and that's going to be a challenge because Solidity is basically JavaScript with contracts, right? And you just have to understand how to interface with it. That's going to be a challenge, and so it'll be interesting to see what happens there. But
Yeah. I think the community plays a big part in this. And so as I've seen in different parts of the crypto community, we do some things better than others. And I think that, Professor, you kind of nailed that too. Where on Ethereum side, they've kind of catered to that as a community, especially towards getting the information out, having more handbooks and guides. They do make it a little bit more friendly, easier to initially digest and really get started. But as the communities, hear some of these thoughts, these perspectives, especially from people who have gone out and tried to solve real world problems, I think that's where the mother of invention comes in. That's where true development tools, are born. And right now we're in that time. We're in a bear market, where we know that a lot of people are going to be focusing on innovation and building those things. And so if it doesn't exist today, it'll probably exist for tomorrow. Optimism. Anybody else want to share if this capstone project has kind of changed or impacted your Bitcoin journey? Okay.
Go ahead, Kenneth. You know you want to.
He looks
Just-
like he has something to say,
I
but he's
just gotta say,
questioning
just
it.
on the development side, it is. I mean, we didn't even get to the development side on Bitcoin, which I think speaks a lot to how much progress was made and how difficult for us it was to even set up an environment where we could start creating something. But then once we got to Ethereum, we were able to upload our first smart contract within that same half semester time period that we had for even just setting up the whole environment for Bitcoin. So I think that speaks to how much better the development side is for Ethereum, and definitely gain a respect for Ethereum over Bitcoin because of that.
Also
Awesome.
gave me some respect for the people actually building these tools and projects in Bitcoin, because you just see how much more technical they can get.
It is harder. How about you, Justin?
Yeah, I mean, someone I guess more on the outside than the other people here. I always saw like Bitcoin as the cleaner token, I guess, compared to like Ethereum, because Ethereum's got a lot on it. Like there's a lot. I saw that there's like a lot you could do, but I always thought that Bitcoin would be a lot more easy for cryptocurrency. I never tried to develop it in it before. Never tried to develop it either. But yeah, I think I lost a little respect for Bitcoin over Ethereum as a developer.
Wow. Okay.
So where does your project stand today? Where are you guys at today with your project?
I mean, it's standing. It's standing on its, not completely on its own at this point, but we have I'm like really proud of all the work we were able to put in over just like 2 semesters, really only 1.5 semesters of working with Solidity. But like we got to the project where it's like at a point like almost basically done. I mean, there's a few things that need to be polished. You could go in and improve some things, but like we have our year-end presentation in less than a week, and like we'll be able to show like a fully functional demo app where we demonstrate a worker getting checked in at a farm and then getting paid, and then somebody who represents a consumer like checking and seeing that the worker got paid. So from that sense, like top to bottom, that's done. Going forward, what we could work on is expanding it to other sections of the supply chain. So for this project, we focused on the farms and workers at the farms getting paid and tracking the coffee in the farms. But working to track the coffee across the whole supply chain would be a great next step too, like tracking it from the farm to the roaster to the distributor and making sure it checks all those boxes at all of those stops too.
Awesome. So you guys truly have your MVP.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yep. Yeah, we're ready to test it. So that is the intention, is to start testing it and have some of the workers using it and getting feedback from them, improving on that. When I was giving a talk in, I think, Guadalajara, there was another group in Colombia doing something similar. So they're also very interested in what we have. They haven't started yet. So again, it applies to more than just coffee. We did coffee, but this could apply to all these industries have the same sorts of problems, and all these countries have these same sorts of problems. So this can be exported and given to others.
Yeah, when we when we were talking to Roberto, our coffee farm contact down in El Salvador, he loved the idea, but he also said like, hey, I can use this at like my coffee shops and use it like with my like waiters and waitresses and like the bartenders there. Even like it doesn't just have to be coffee supply chain, it could be anything really.
Yeah, maybe it'll end up being a payroll system.
These students are completing the project very soon now, but the project itself isn't done. And Eric and I are starting to talk about next year's project, another team of students starting in January, and you can see a whole bunch of directions things can go. I think the hard thing we're going to have is figuring out, of all these many choices, which opportunities do we focus on with the students, and how do we maybe interest others to pick up some other things too.
I think that's the fun part, and that's the part where you really get the learning experience like you guys have. Choosing the proper tech stack in order to start developing with, in order to solve the problem, and then being able to highlight secondary and tertiary problems that future teams can come back in and obviously expand and build upon. So real blockchain stuff. Awesome. Well, guys, what's next for you guys as you guys complete your capstone projects? What do you guys plan to do, or what are your dreams? What are you wanting to do next?
I'm personally a big believer in the decentralized ethos. I'm fully hooked on this whole blockchain thing, so I want to go somewhere working to develop some more smart contracts for social good type of aspect, wherever I can do that.
Kenny, how about you?
I'll be joining the corporate world, so I'll be joining Visa as a software engineer. Not really working with too much blockchain stuff anymore, more like cloud-based applications and all that. But I hope to keep learning more and maybe even pay special attention towards the blockchain efforts that are being made currently at Visa and see what I can do there.
Plant a little virus in Visa, right? Orange pill everybody in the room. Come on, do it. Not a virus like that. I mean, like, orange pilling everybody. Like they shouldn't have let you in the door.
As they rescind his offer.
Oh yeah. I'll be following suit with Kenny. I'll be going corporate as well. I'm headed to Ernst & Young, and they do have some blockchain efforts going on there, as Professor Korth mentioned a little earlier. So definitely going to try to break into that space while I'm there. But it's always been a dream of mine to build and create something, and I think this space I can't think of a better opportunity to build and create than this space right now. And so I'm definitely looking to keep self-educating myself and eventually put myself in a position where I can create something in the space that I'm proud of and that can have some impact and social good.
Fantastic.
Yeah. I'm kind of a variable. I'm not really sure where I'm going to go next. I am interested in artificial intelligence and deep learning, so I do want to do something in that path. If there's a way that I can incorporate it with blockchain and my experience with this project, I think that would be really awesome. But as of right now, I'm not sure where I'll be.
Free agent. So if anybody's listening and they want to offer Justin an awesome career, I think he's ready.
Download GitHub Copilot. Will blow your mind.
Oh my god, I was in.
Has anybody used it?
No, I haven't, but for my office hours, I grade for a class. Professor Korth probably won't want to hear this, but in my office hours, this kid came in and I watched Copilot do like a whole like 40% of his assignment. Like it blew my mind. Like a lot of it was wrong, but
I
like the structure of it was right. And he was sitting there like
yeah
he just like kept hitting enter for Copilot. He didn't really know what was going on, but like it
tab
was already
tab
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 tab.
tab. That blew my mind. It also scared me a little bit. But yeah, that stuff is
Yeah.
powerful.
Scary that it knows what to suggest before you even know that you're
Yeah.
wanting that next.
It was writing my code that I had just written before, like last week. It was putting it knew what I literally wrote no code, and yeah. Anyway, so you want an AI in code? Look at that.
Yeah.
Start with that. There's a couple of other projects out there like that, but by far that was the one that just blew me away.
Yeah, I'll take a look at it. Looked it up. It looks pretty cool.
Okay. Joss, anything for you?
Yeah, just want to do some smart contract development wherever I can do that.
Yeah, he's got lots of experience besides this project. He was doing smart contract dev in an Algorand project we arranged last spring, doing for their new smart contract ecosystem some sample contracts, like beautifully documented. It was a nice piece of work there, and he was the architect of the new Solidity project in my course this semester that the other students here were the beneficiaries or victims of, depending on how they want to characterize themselves. But so Joss has a ton of experience there, so he will be very much sought after. Meanwhile, of course, I'm not graduating. I just, but I should mention with EY came up earlier, and a few weeks ago I talked to Paul Brody, who's their head of blockchain, and they are very deeply into this in a whole bunch of ways. So there will be possibilities there, if not on day one, shortly thereafter.
Well, Professor Korth, I just want to say I applaud you for your efforts in being, the one to go out there and advocate for the education of blockchain technologies at Lehigh. It's amazing what you're doing. You're doing remarkable things with young minds and molding them and building a better future, not just in technologies, but touching actual people with real world problems and solving those. So congratulations to you, and congratulations to all of you guys for this capstone project.
Yeah, thank you for all those kind words. Much appreciated. I'll just say I'm having a great time too. So it's been great fun, and I put in the chat so it's on the written record. But you want to see more about what we're doing? blockchain.cse.lehigh.edu.
Okay. Anybody else want to put in a plug for how anyone, if they want to follow you, see what you're doing in the future? If you'd like to, you can put one in right now.
Or blast you for busting on.
Yeah, you can blast.
Don't give out your email address.
There you go. Yeah. Should I give out then my LinkedIn? I guess my website.
Yeah, LinkedIn, Twitter.
Yeah, send it to. You can send it to after the fact, and EJ or Adib can put it under you. So if you want somebody to follow you under Twitter, they can just send your Twitter handle and put that under.
We'll add it to our show notes for you.
Okay, cool. I'll just add it there.
You should do that.
Well, I don't know. It's got all my links.
You might get blasted.
That's fine.
All right, guys. Well, I really appreciate all the time you guys have spent with us this evening. I'm even more impressed and thankful for what you guys have done. I think that there's a lot of people in El Salvador involved with the coffee project themselves as an actual career, and how this is going to impact their lives. So thank you guys on behalf of those individuals too. So